Hi, everyone. I'm Brandon Lee. Welcome to this Mindful Moment segment here on Good Morning Sunshine. Today, we have mental health advocate Clayton Echard here in the studios today. Some of you may remember him from ABC's The Bachelor. Many of you will recognize Clayton. What was it? Season 26, not 28, right? Season 26 was The Bachelor.
I believe we finally got it right at 26.
All right.
Yeah, 26, 27, 28, somewhere in there.
Clayton was actually The Bachelor on season number 26, but Clayton has now kind of changed the trajectory of really your life and really now becoming a mental health advocate. Obviously, some stuff had to have happened in order for you to get to where you are today. And I want people to get to know you. You were born and raised in Missouri, right? What was childhood like for you?
For me, I grew up in a small town, about 10,000 people. So for some, that's not small, but it felt very small. Friday Night Lights was a big thing. Everyone would go to the games. I mentioned this to you off camera. We would go to this commuter lot to hang out because we didn't really have much going on there. So we waited until someone would throw a house party, but we would all sit in this commuter lot right off the highway. And it was fun. We made the most of it. We got creative. We would freestyle rap. We would dance. We would just find how to stay entertained at all times.
I think people who saw you on The Bachelor and they saw this version of you recently, right, on national television, right, this super GQ looking guy, this former football player, right, in this role. But what I don't think a lot of people understand about you or actually knew the depth of actually your life and what you experienced in childhood was that the perception of people may have of you today, if they're a huge fan of The Bachelor, is not the real Clayton, because you experienced a lot of bullying as a child.
Yeah, I did, and I think now I'm trying to share my story to spread that awareness that things aren't always as they seem, and what meets the eye, there may be more there below the surface, and that's certainly the case with my experience. I say that I've built this exterior somewhat to convince myself that I was good enough, and I did that through, going on to the show, through playing sports and getting to the highest level in the NFL briefly. I was building this image of what I thought a real man was so that I could convince myself that I was good enough, because as a kid I never felt good enough. So now I share my story and I share these old photos to show people that I started at a place that isn't, like, from a physical standpoint, it's not where I am today, and physicality doesn't matter as much as I made it out to be. And so that's really why I'm sharing my story today, is because I feel that there are others out there that have their own stories, but most people just don't get past the surface level. And so I'm hoping through sharing my experience, I can get others to share theirs, and we can all have a better understanding of each other and the world around us.
Where were you at mentally, and what did you think being on that show would provide you?
At the time, I saw it as a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and I saw it as a chance to meet my potential future partner. That's what I thought at the time. Now, as I reflect back with a new sense of mindfulness, I realize I went on the show for validation. I was looking for external validation to essentially show me that, see, look at all the things you've done. Now will you finally feel that you're good enough? And that's, I think, why I went on there, and I wanted to show the world, hey, I'm this really, really nice, great guy that's just looking for love, which I was, but I had a lot of unaddressed trauma that surfaced in a very high stressful environment, and it really exposed my insecurities that I hadn't addressed from many years ago.
During the show and during the actual filming and the recording, I mean, you and I are both television guys now. You have the TV experience. So we know the perception of people, what they have of us is not even close to the reality of what it's like on the other lens of that camera, even in the filming and the production stage. Was there ever a part in that show where you felt sad or you felt lonely or you felt, why am I doing this?
Yeah, absolutely. I wrote in my journal, I kept a journal while I was on the show. It's one of my favorite things that I have from it. I remember writing, I felt like I could only be 80% myself. So I was having this conflict internally, and I was basically trying to appease everyone, from myself to the producers to the women to the eventual audience. So everything that I was doing, I thought, well, what are they going to think? Are they going to like this? Is this going to keep people entertained? Are people going to be happy with me? And so I was so focused on trying to please everybody else that I think I was willing to let my morals and values slip a little bit.
One thing I give you so much credit for, and just a lot of props for, Clayton, is that you are now using the platform that you have because of those experiences, right? And maybe the experience of being on The Bachelor wasn't a great one for you emotionally or mentally. You got a lot of hate. You got a lot of DMs from viewers and people who saw you, and I'm sure you even get them now on Instagram, where you talk about mental health and you're being so vulnerable about being bullied as a child. And I'm sure that there are still some people who are like, what does this guy have to cry about?
Yeah.
Like, he's GQ, he's got everything. He was on one of the best shows, reality TV shows ever produced in history. Like, what are you complaining about?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And
What would be your message to those people?
My message is that I think we all need to practice kindness, and we need to not invalidate others' feelings, because their perception is their reality, and therefore we should understand that and give it that weight that it deserves. Just because we don't agree with it, we might not even understand why that individual feels the way they do. The fact of the matter is that whatever's causing them pain is creating a psychological response. They're getting a stress response, elevation in cortisol. So that experience is very real to them. And I just wish that instead of us devaluing what others felt, we would try to understand them more and give them grace as we help them through that process. That's my message.
You spoke recently on a social media post on Instagram, and you were talking about body dysmorphia. You know, and I think that that's a conversation that we all need to have, because somebody can look at you, right? And listen, you're jacked, you're this big beefy dude, former pro football player, right? People will be like, body dysmorphia, like how does this guy have body dysmorphia? And I think a lot of people, what society needs to understand is, if you see somebody at the gym and they're so jacked up and they're ripped, and they could have body dysmorphia. We just don't tend to look at it that way, because we feel, oh, they're super fit, they must be healthy.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, take me back to what that body dysmorphia looked like for you as a child, and how that's impacted your life where you are today.
Yeah. Well, I've been on both sides. I've been too skinny, or I say too skinny. I've been really, really skinny weight-wise, where I could have benefited from putting on some good weight, but still thought I was fat in those moments, to then getting up to 275 pounds and then feeling that I actually had a lot of fat to lose. At both points, whether I was 105 pounds or 275 pounds, I didn't like the way that I looked, and I thought that I was too fat. Even when the numbers, I got a body fat reading, it said I was 10.9%, didn't matter, still didn't convince me. And so, to your point, there are individuals that, it becomes an obsession of, I'm trying to get rid of this struggle, so if I don't like the way that my body looks, change it. And the fallacy in that is that we're trying to change something physical that really needs to be changed mentally.
Yeah, that's really great. And I know that you and I, Clayton is a guest on my podcast, Escaping Rock Bottom, and I think we spoke for about 30 or 45 minutes, and we really go in depth, kind of talking about how our own childhood struggles really impacted us as adults. And childhood trauma comes out in so many different ways. And Clayton, for me, I started to abuse drugs and alcohol, right? That's the way how I numbed out. Some people can find that in the gym. Some people can find that in food. Some people can find that in dating, right? All we're doing is filling a need to numb the true pain that still exists. And so I know that you are beginning that journey of kind of going back and reprocessing and healing, that inner child. You, Clayton, I can see having such a huge, profound impact on so many people. And so continue speaking that language, continue on that journey. And I'm really proud of you for jumping into behavioral health and wanting to be that mental health advocate for so many other people.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for having this conversation with me. That's what it's all about.
Always. So if you want the deeper conversation, I think, again, we spoke for almost 45 minutes on Escaping Rock Bottom, the podcast, where it's all about mental health and mental well-being. Thanks for joining us on this Mindful Moment segment here on Good Morning Sunshine. Do us a favor, since you're watching us right now on YouTube, go ahead, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and then click that little bell, that notification symbol. You'll get notified every time we upload a new segment.